The only four skills startup actually tests in a PMM interview and how you can show it. You see, startup hiring manager will always ask you dozens of different questions in a product marketing interview, but they're actually testing only four skills. And if you're a career switcher and an aspiring PMM, this is where interview feels brutal. You're actually addressing the question you heard, not the skills being tested. So in this videos, I'm going to show you the four skill startup test, the exact way they test each question, and how to prove that you have the skills using your past work even without a PMM title. Now, skill number four is very critical. It determines whether you will succeed not just in the interview, but also survive your first 90 days in a startup PMM role. So let's get started. Now here's the problem. Most people ignore it and it costs them the role. By the end of this video, you will have a plug and play proof story structure and you will know how to translate your past work into product marketing proof. Now most aspiring prepare the wrong way. They learn frameworks, memorize positioning templates, and even collect GTM playbooks. But startups don't hire you for theory. They hire you for proof you can deliver output under pressure, with unclear inputs and limited time. Now here's the real game. Every PMM interview question is testing one of the four capabilities. So instead of focusing on crafting the perfect answer, you identify the capability being tested, then answer them with your proof. The proof format always remains same, and this is what I teach in my coaching program. It's always context, action, outcome, and the bridge. Now, context is the situation that you're going to set the tone for. Action is what you did. Outcome is what changed based your action. Now, bridge is the sentence that connects your work to the product marketing skill being tested. This is the most critical part. You may have the perfect answer, but if you're not able to add and connect your experience to a product marketing skills, they will not be able to relate to what you're trying to say. And if you do that, you are no longer pretending you were a PMM. You are actually proving you have the capability. Whether you're from sales, customer success, ops, content, consulting, it doesn't matter what your background is, you will still sound like the strongest candidate in the room. Now, I have put together a free template called the Interview Story Builder. The link is in the description. Watch this video first and then fill it out with your top three stories. By the way, if you're new to the channel, I'm Chandan Dekha. I've spent 18 years in product marketing across startup and established brand, and I've helped dozens of aspiring PMM and career switcher transition and translate their experience into product marketing proof. Now, let's break down the four skills startup actually test. Skill number one, customer and market insights. Now, this is super critical. Startup hires PMM to stop the company from building in vacuum. Therefore, the first thing that they're going to test in any interview is, can you understand customers better than the team currently does? They're not asking you whether you like talking to customers. Now that's given. They actually want to know if you can turn customer signals into clear decisions. How it shows up during the interview, they would ask questions like, how do you understand customers' need? Tell me a time you found an insight that's changed directions. What will you learn in your first 30 days? What they are actually testing is, can you pull signals and information from various sources, group customers by problem, notice a pattern across feedback, and turn those patterns into decisions? Now, here's how you can prove this. Let's say you're a sales manager who got this question during an interview. Tell me about a time you uncovered a customer insights that changed what your team did. So here's how you can address this and you can answer this question. In my previous sales role, I noticed a mid-market deal that kept stalling at a security review. So I booked 10 post-loss calls with prospect who walked away and asked them to walk me through their evaluation process. What I kept hearing is the same issue, confusion about our data retention policy. I verified it by checking deal notes in our CRM, then wrote a one-page summary for product and sales and engineering, recommending a simple security FAQ. We added the FAQ to the sales process and the win rate in this segment improved 15%. Now here's the bridge that you can add at the end. This is customer and market insight. I took conversation data, found a pattern, turned it into a change that moved the business metric. Now in my coaching, I always use this as a syllable line. What I'm showing here is customer insights. I found a repeatable pattern in real conversation, turned it into a decision and moved the metrics. User insights and customer feedback is super critical, especially when you're working in a startup. Now, this is how you can dig into your past experience and then connect it back to a product marketing capability, which is most sought after, especially in a startup environment. Now let's move on to the skill number 2, positioning and storytelling. You see, positioning is not about writing clever messages. It is about clear thinking with customer at the center of it all. Your ability to take a complex product and make it feel obvious to a specific person. Here's how it shows up in interview. How would you position our product for a particular user? How would you explain our product to a non-technical buyer? And it can also show up in a case study. Write a one-page narrative that reflects our positioning. So in an interview scenario, this is what the interview is actually testing. Do you lead with problems and value and not dependent on feature dumps? Can you adapt our story for different audiences without changing the truth? Can you make our positioning simple without making it look shallow? Now here's how you can answer it. Let's say the question is, how would you fix our positioning for a complex product so that our buyers instantly get the value? Now if you're a customer success manager, just for the example, here's how you can answer this. As a customer success manager, I was onboarding a marketing team that was overwhelmed by the data spread across 4 different tools. Everyone kept asking for a better dashboard. So I reframed the problem. They needed a unified, visible, and clear next steps. I worked with the product team and rewrote how we explain our product, focusing on this core problem that the users were facing. Instead of walking through features, we led with, you get unified reporting and real-time alerts that tells you what's working and what to do next without manual setup. Next, I tightened our differentiation by tracking competitors to identify the gap that would help us position better. Next, I adapted all this information by personas. Let's say for CMO, I focused on strategic visibility. For marketing ops, we spoke about reducing sprawl time. Based on this, what we saw as an outcome is our onboarding conversation converted 24% faster than before. Now, here is the bridging statement that you can use. This is positioning and storytelling. I translated customer pain into clear promise, simple narrative, using a persona-specific messaging that improved conversion. Now you can convert this into a generic stealable line. What I'm showing here is positioning. I took customer pain, turned it into a simple promise, adapted it by persona, and conversion improved significantly. Now, if you want help writing these proof stories fast, grab the interview story builder that the link I've shared below. Now let's move on to the next skill, go-to-market ownership. A big requirement for every early stage startup. Now, GTM ownership in a startup is owning and running a launch end to end. It could be a big launch, it could be a product launch, it could also be a rollout. In startup, it's not about creating a complex and long plan, but your ability to choose the right few tactics to go to market. Now, in interviews, this can show up as questions. Tell me about a launch you owned or a rollout you executed. How would you launch feature X in next 60 days? What channels you would choose and why? So basically an interview setup, this is what is getting tested. Can you set goals and success metrics, pick an audience and rollout approach? You can look at channel plan and then connect all of this into a project that is aligned to the adoption pipeline or the revenue goal of the startup. Now here's how you can prove it. Let's say this is the question getting asked. Tell me about a launch you owned end to end. And let's say you're an operations manager. So here's how you can answer this. As an operation manager, I needed to roll out a new CRM workflow with brutal constraints. I had 2 weeks to execute, I had 1 designer to work with, and a very limited budget. But I set a single goal, improve data accuracy by 20% without disrupting the active deals that are there in the pipeline. I chose a phased rollout and a pilot with 1 sales team first. I used 2 channels for outreach and engagement, a short email sequence and a 1-page training document. I tracked adoption daily and focused on fast feedbacks and quick fixes. What I noticed is 80% of adoption improved when we ran this pilot phase. Based on this feedback, I created a quick start guide and I used it to scale it across company-wide, across different stakeholders that I had. Now here's the bridging statement. This is GTM ownership. I defined the goal, chose the rollout, picked the channel, and moved adoption under real constraint. Again, the stealable line can remain consistent across different roles, but here's you can say whenever a GTM question is asked, what I'm showing is GTM ownership. I set the objective, built a simple plan under constraints, and measured what changed. As a startup founder, I can tell you that most startups fail because teams don't align. That is skill number 4 that I wanted to talk here, cross-functional influence. Now, cross-functional influence will determine whether you are going to survive as a product marketing manager in a startup, because you don't have authority, but you still need decisions, alignment, and delivery. So, how does it show up in an interview setup? It can show up through questions like, tell me about a time you influence without authority. How do you handle conflicting stakeholder requests? And in panel rounds, different functions would test how you think and communicate. So basically, what is getting tested is, can you structure chaos into options and trade offs? Can you move conflicts towards decisions? Can you create artifacts that helps other teams execute and understand what each function cares about? Now, here's how you can prove it. Let's say the question is, tell me about a time you influenced without authority to get the entire cross-functional team aligned. So let's say you're a product manager. Now you can answer this like this. As a product manager, we were debating whether to refactor a core feature with very low adoption. Now engineering team wanted a full rebuild, whereas leadership feared that the roadmap might get delayed. Everyone was stuck. I pulled data to show bugs burn 15 customer success and engineering hours every week. Based on this, I wrote a one-pager doc with 3 options and clear trade-offs. I ran a 30-minute alignment session with design, support, engineering, and a leadership team. And finally, we agreed on a phased approach, not a full rebuild, and a phase fix with clear milestones. Post this alignment, I drafted a release note explaining the why, and I also joined customer calls to walk key accounts through the change that we are going to apply. The outcome we noticed is feature usage increased by almost 20%, and escalation dropped significantly, almost to near zero. Now here's the bridging statement that you can use. This is how I approach cross-functional influence. I used data, evaluated options, and drafted clear artifacts to align teams and enable execution without authority. Again, the stealable line that can be applied in different circumstances if such a question comes in, as you can show that what I'm showing is cross-functional influence. I align multiple teams around a decision using clear options, data, and shared context. So there you go. These are the 4 skills startups test in any product marketing interview in some shape or form. They may, like I said, they may ask 15 different questions, but this is what they are testing. They're looking for customer insights capability, positioning, they're looking at GTM ownership, they're looking at cross-functional influence. So when you get any interview question, pause for a moment, think about it, understand what skills they are actually testing, then answer with the same flow as I've talked about. Set the context, talk about the actions you took, focus on the outcome you delivered, and then the most important part, use the bridging statement to connect what you did to the product marketing capability being evaluated. Name the capability out loud. This is customer insights. This is GTM ownership. The single sentence tells the interviewer you understand what is being tested and makes your past experience feel like product marketing experience. Now, if you want to apply this to your interview prep, grab the free interview story builder that I've shared in the description. The link is there. Fill out your top 3 stories and use it in your next interview. Alright guys, if this video was helpful, please press the like and share button so that more aspiring PMMs can find it and benefit from it. Also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos on how to break into product marketing roles, especially in a startup. I'll see you in the next video.